So to help us understand exactly how to build that necessary digital foundation, our first speaker, Mr. Arun Gopalaswamy, will be representing on the art of possible in digital manufacturing. So the stage is all yours.
Thanks, Siddharth. You more or less have completed my presentation also. But yeah, and good to see the hall filling up. Normally happens in the session before the cocktails. So, and nothing to do with my talk that is coming up, but good to see the hall full again. So as I, yeah, sorry. Yeah, as I just get patched in, I would just want to ask, when was the last time any of you used a currency note? A 500 rupee note or a 100 rupee note. Do you remember? Must have been some time ago. Yeah. So I was. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Good. So good afternoon. Let me first introduce myself before I get into the art of possible. My name is Arun Gopalswamy. I've been with ITC now for over 9.5 years. And before that, I was in the Indian Navy for around 25 years on board submarines, and I also commissioned the first indigenous nuclear submarine called the Arihant. Okay, so, and yes, now just coming back to my question. Now, I was traveling to, we have a ITC has a factory in Trichy. So it was a couple of days ago, I went, from my stay somewhere in Whitefield, I booked a cab online, DigiYatra, zipped in. I had 20 minutes to board, zipped in, entered security, zipped in, got down at Trichy. On the way, there is this, you must try this place called Parthasarthi Vilas. It's a heritage restaurant, small, rundown restaurant which serves the world's best dosas. And when I paid by cash, he said, sir, don't you have UPI? So I paid him by UPI. Then we went and we came back. And today when I was coming, believe it or not, at Anand Kumble Circle, there was a blind beggar with a UPI tag. Okay. So, and I'm not joking. You can go and see that. So if the government of India, and by the way, last week I renewed my passport, got done in 2 days. I applied for an Austrian visa, which hasn't come since 45 days. That's another story. Income tax return yesterday, 15 minutes. Okay, and I'm sure it's the same story with all of you. So if the government of India, on a cross-section of 1.4 billion people, ranging from highly educated to most illiterate, can do this, then it's definitely possible. Okay, so that's why I've called my topic the art of possible. And yeah. Wait, let me use this. Sorry. No problem. I'll use the key. Yeah. So Charles Darwin had said once, not many centuries ago, before AI existed, he said that it is not the strongest or most intelligent that survives, but the one who's most adaptable to change. And that's very true today. And what Darwin has said, John Chambers has repeated in a slightly different variant, that at least 40% of businesses will die in the next 10 years if they don't figure out how to change to accommodate to new technologies. Okay, and yeah, digital transformation is not a project to finish, but it's a constant state of perpetual agility. So we are moving from connected factories to factories which think. Okay, And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this journey on what's possible. It's not a magic wand, and I think since morning we've seen a lot of platforms promising a lot of things. I'm sure all of that happens. But is it so easy that somebody comes, plugs in a platform, and voila, your factory suddenly is automated? Does it happen like that? To a certain degree, yes, but there's a lot of work to be done on the background. I'm sure all of you have seen this. Till the fourth industrial stage of the industrial revolution, it was all about mechanization. It was all about automation. Okay, the machineries would automate, the processes would automate. But when we talk of the 5.0 or the autonomous, this is when the machines start thinking. Okay, they make human decisions. Okay. Now, before we do all of this, all of us are here because our bosses have told us, our management has told us, you must do something in digitalization, AI. Everybody's talking about AI. Our Prime Minister is talking about AI. So there must be something in AI. Well, what is there? Well, there is $15.7 trillion. There is a promise of potential of increasing your productivity by 30 to 40%. And 70% of all firms are doing something in AI. Okay, because we have to show it in our sustainable annual reports and all of it. So all of us are doing something, but again, the numbers are large, but what's in it for me? Okay, now out of that $15.7 trillion, how much will my company benefit from? Now, like I said, all of us are here because we are in that 90%. AI, we've got to do something about AI, digitalization. Okay, our management tells us we have to do something. 17% of us are doing something, or we'll go back from this forum and say, no, I heard this guy, this is a fantastic platform. You plug in, so we must try. So 17% will try, but only 2%, and this is not my data, this is World Economic Forum data that I'm putting in front of you. That's 2%, only 2% will actually derive this benefit. Okay, so it is not about belief that we are lacking in. It's about execution. Yeah, now let me tell you on ground. While there are a lot of products, a lot of on ground where we at ITC have done something. I'm not saying we've transformed our factories, but we've done something in each one of these. The PQD, SCM, the pillars that you see. Quality. Somebody talked of vision. Okay, the uptime, you can predict, and I'll go into each one of these topics a little bit to tell you about what we are doing and what is possible. Autonomy, where the machines decide, okay, what is to be done, the process automation. Digital twins, where you build a simulator twin and you carry out all your product development, your load and stressing of the lines, and instead of doing it real time on your lines. Supply chain is another very, very important pillar, which I will talk about, where we at ITC have done a lot in terms of demand forecasting, and I'll go into that. And of course, the most important pillar, the workforce. Okay, so a lot of us, me included, we've created very fancy dashboards, okay, where the OEE is flashed, extra giveaway, yields are flashed on the screen. But when you go and ask an operator, finally the operator is an ITI qualified or a diploma qualified guy, and you ask him what is that, he doesn't know. Okay, so then what happens? It just graduates to when the CEO visits, you switch on these screens and you see. Is that the true worth? Well, it isn't. And we've now, in a process of burning our fingers, have learned the right way. And a lot of iterations later, there are some success stories which I'll be talking about. Quality, seeing what the human eye can't. Earlier, our biscuits line used to have a high-speed 16-channel conveyor coming out from the oven. Okay, we had 4 people there, and depending on those people, their skill, their mood, if they got out on the right side of the bed, or if the operator's wife gave him a, something, a dose in the morning. But so it depended, the quality was dependent on that. Now we put 3 simple cameras, put in an AI model, which learnt the different type of defects. There are 9 type of defects: diameter, color, chips, or whether the biscuit is chipped, so on and so forth. And the model learnt, and there was 100% quality check. Okay. Simple, it didn't cost much. And like Siddharth said, crawl, walk, run. But you don't have to wait for the entire factory to, create a spaceship or a nuclear submarine, and you can take pockets. So we took this pocket and we put in 3 cameras built in. It takes some time. Somebody was asking me, can you plug and play? It takes time for that model to learn. Of course, now models are learning much faster. And you created a quality-based AI system. And it took all of, I think, 3 lakh rupees was what it took. And then immediately we scaled it across. Okay, so quality visual inspection is something that we've done, is a doable reality that has happened and which we've implemented. Real-time statistical process controls, complete traceability. Now you know where that biscuit has come from, at what time. So I know the batch, the raw material batch, and then I can trace from my SAP where that maida has come from. So there is complete traceability that I can install, which is an essential for all your FSSAI clearances. So this is one very important aspect, especially for a foods manufacturing. Then predictive maintenance, a lot of people have spoken about it, but I want to give you the ground zero perspective. So we took a line, and somebody came to us, he says, you put these sensors, and then you will be able to predict 2 days before, a week before. So we put in around 86 sensors on one biscuits line. They were vibration-based sensors, and so he put 86. So each of those vibration sensors gave us fantastic fast Fourier transform outputs, and there were these waves, and the specialist came and said, at this point there is a problem. But he went away, and who was going to tell the operator, looking at that FFT, what is the problem? So it didn't work that way. So then we had to iterate. That means if that problem, let's say that the fast Fourier transform has a setting below the threshold, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the possible causes. Either there could be something stuck on the conveyor, okay, or there is the motor has got loaded, or the bearing has got a problem. So there was an option given to the operator. So that's how we learnt. We put in those transforms, there were promises, yes, your downtimes will go down by 30%, 40%, but it requires that human interface, it requires that system to learn, and it requires that interaction with that operator on the ground for this AI to be successful. I think that was a learning that we got, that it is not just a plug and play, but every platform has to be customized to not even that company, I would say, to that particular factory, for that to be successful. Okay. So, yes, we have reduced, and there are some examples of, I think all people sitting here, Siemens, ABB, where we have reduced 30 to 50% of downtimes and increased uptime. But yes, this is a possibility. This is something that we have done by using a mixture of, you have to choose your correct sensor. Do you require a current-based sensor? Do you require a vibration-based sensor? Or do you require a hybrid sensor? And then the output must give you actionable insights. Okay, that's the learning that we've got. Autonomy, lights out factory is not science fiction. It's happening all over the place. So there are processes. For example, we built something called a process predictor, where I work in a noodles factory. So the noodle cake has a certain weight, let's say 60 grams. And if continuously the checkware is giving me data where it tells me that it is below 60 grams. That means my incoming sheet has a problem. So automatically there is a signal that is sent for the sheet thickness roller adjustment, where it reduces, if it is underweight, then it increases that thickness. Okay, or if it is overweight, it reduces that incoming sheet thickness. But yes, that is a learning, because you need to have confidence in that AI model firstly, and before you make this autonomous. So it is not plug and play, again and again I'm saying, but it is a constant process of learning. The system learns, the operator builds confidence in that AI model prediction, and then you finally implement it on ground. Okay, that is the learning that we've had. Robotics, if you go into the definition, textbook definition of robotics, it says a robot is something that does fixed, repetitive tasks. Well, that's not the case anymore. There are cobots, there are robots. For example, I just told you this case of AI-based vision defect identification. Okay, so these are high-speed biscuits coming out of the oven at almost 60 biscuits per minute. And while you can identify with a camera, how do you reject it? Okay, so that was a problem. While you identified it. So then there was a AI-based robot, a high-speed robot, which got this input from this camera, and it says XY coordinate of that 16-channel row that was coming out. So and so, X comma Y, this is wrong. So that would go, and so there was a high-speed robot that was integrated. But again, it's a learning. It is customized to our need. So we had to choose a vendor for the quality, because there is no vision vendor, or there may be, an AI-based vision vendor who's also a good AI-based robo integrator. So we had to find and then mix. So learning here is there is nobody who's going to give you a pill that is going to solve all your problems. There are going to be various doctors, various specialists. You have to go to the orthopedician, you have to go to the ophthalmologist, but finally at the end of the day, you have to solve the problem for yourself. Digital twin, again, no, not science fiction anymore, a necessity. We've implemented, I'll give you a use case where noodle line, we have around 4 noodle lines. A particular variant which is supposed to be packed on one. So if it was supposed to be, because the packaging machine was specific to that, so we created a digital twin which optimized the throughput, which put in instances of packaging machines, or wrappers as you call it, with breakdowns, and then optimized the routes that the noodle cakes could take. Didn't cost much, all of around 3.5 lakh rupees, but a huge increase, a huge reduction in our wastages, and increase in efficiency, because now I could run one line and use packaging machines through this buffer conveyor, which was designed by this digital twin. Okay, so practical problems. Supply chain, a huge, huge area where I think all of us can benefit from. Demand forecasting. For example, this model told us that in the month during Diwali, in this particular city, your demand will go up. Okay, so for example, Ashirwad Atta. So it says you'll be surprised, in Saukarpet in Chennai, which is a North Indian dominated area, the demand during Diwali goes up for this particular brand of atta, Sharbati atta, which comes from Madhya Pradesh, that particular strain. The model threw it up. And then it says, if there's a supply disruption, let's say there is a flood in somewhere, it says now it might not be available in this part of Madhya Pradesh, so there's an alternate here, because the weather predicts that there's going to be a problem here. Another use case, ITC also makes salt, especially in Gujarat. And those of you who travel to Gujarat would have seen these huge salt pans next to the sea, where the seawater is taken in, and then these dikes are built, and then it dries up, and then the salt is refined. So I think it was a couple of years ago, there was a cyclone that was coming that side, simple integration of that weather forecast with our production. And then it told us another 4 days, you better move your stalled stock somewhere else. Okay, a lot of other companies lost huge volumes of salt. We could salvage by simple AI weather forecasted, which was integrated to our production. Didn't cost much. All of, I think, a lakh plus is what it cost. Again, the most important part, workforce. People say AI will, reduce jobs. I think AI will make your workforce more efficient. Smart glasses, we've used this during COVID for our audits, safety audits. The guy just puts on, nowadays you have the Meta AI, Ray-Ban, you have the body cam. In fact, now for inaccessible areas, confined areas, restricted areas for safety, we send somebody with that body cam. The feed comes, the safety manager looks at it, signs off. So simple, smart innovations that you can use. Another interesting thing somebody was talking about, ChatGPT based. So we've uploaded all our troubleshooting manuals onto a simple LLM and made it voice-based and vernacular. So somebody in Trichy in Tamil will ask that troubleshooting manual, okay, my boiler isn't firing. So I will get a vernacular answer from that specific ITC documentation. So I need not have an open sourced ChatGPT. I can take ChatGPT into my document or data domain, and it learns, since it has already learnt outside, it now just works on my data. So your data is secure. Simple applications. Okay. Cost at zero. We got a kite, our intern to develop this. It's working now. So yes, I've painted a very rosy picture, but does it just happen that way? Now, unless you have all of those tech stacks, and somebody spoke about it, unless I have all of these tech stacks which are connected, okay, and then I need that for my AI core. I think the Cognite gentleman spoke of, yes, that you need to have that data connected. Okay, then you can plug and play in 2.5 days. Okay, but if you don't have your data interconnected, it might take you 2.5 years. So that is an important thing which I think all our managements need to realize, that it is not just an ROI-based system. You need to create that infrastructure. So that's a learning. And then once you have that connected data, then AI becomes very powerful. I think that's the learning, that then you can do all of what I've spoken about, provided you have this part, your fundamentals stack up and going. Sustainability, because we at ITC, my factory at ITC Malur is a 100% green factory. We have a 10 megawatt solar plant. All our fuel is biomass based. So whatever Donald Trump gets up and decides in the morning, it doesn't affect us too much. Okay. So yes, so there it is. We can do all of this, your sustainability, carbon tracking, provided all that data is there with you. And energy optimization. I'll give you another use case. Connected, we have an energy management system. Very simple use case. Okay, so all of you, I think for those who are not aware, contract demand is the demand that every factory has, that you can draw from the grid. Okay, so let's call it, let's say 6 MVA, and then you pay some fixed demand charges on that contract demand. So 6 MVA in states like Tamil Nadu, it's very, very high, 604 rupees per kVA. So if you do the math, 600 into 6 MVA, that's a huge sum. Okay, so from our energy management system, we found that out of 6 MVA, we operate at around 4.5. Okay, that's what the energy management system is. So we reduced our contract demand from 6 to 5, and that's a huge saving. You can just do the math, 1000 kVA into 600 per month into 12. Just by this simple data analytics so efficiency is a byproduct of the intelligence which comes from your system. I think this Siddharth has already brought out, so I'll not go into this too much, where these are the different levels of autonomous operations. I think most of us, except maybe a few automotive factories, are at level 1 to level 2. Okay, and he brought out beautifully, crawl, walk, run. You can't jump to, you've come here today, you can't say, okay, from tomorrow my factory is going to be level 5. Doesn't work that way. You have to go step by step through all these levels. So what should you do now? Okay, that now that we are here and we are very serious about AI and digitalization, what can our organizations do? So I think we should build that data foundation. So I'm not saying you create, sensorize all your lines, all your equipment, but identify the pain points. Okay, let's say my compressor is where my power leakage is the most. Okay, so put some current sensors on your compressor. Okay, identify your pain points, build that data foundation. So create, for example, in ITC, we decided that the packaging machines was where my leakage was the highest, because there the OE was low. So we sensorized the packaging machines. We got in data from that PLCs of those packaging machines, built that data foundation. Okay. Second, and most important, invest in in-house AI talent. 3 follows from, is a byproduct of number 1, your legacy systems. Again, not enterprise-wide. Identify those key few areas where you need to upgrade your legacy systems. And of course, cybersecurity, and most important, pilot at scale. What this means is, like, I'll give you a use case. We saw that our packaging machines were where the maximum impact we could have had because of the lower OEs. So we did a quick pilot where I got real-time OE data, that means my performance, quality, availability, from the PLC sensors of my packaging machines. Got a quick win in one factory, replicated across my other 77 lines, and that was a win. So I don't need to build one big factory, integrate everything, get all the data, build fancy dashboards. So pilot at scale, pilot at small, and then go big bang on that success story. Okay. Yeah. So this is a plausible trajectory where we will go. We are looking at autonomous factories by 2030, give or take a few. This is just to have a milestone. So you start your pilots now, you build in your AI managed supply chains, gradually upskill your operators with your human AI collaboration, use digital twins wherever your pain points, start with one digital twin, and then gradually we head to autonomous manufacturing. So what's in it? You need some data to convince your senior management. Well, these are some success stories, and all of them are from World Economic Forum lighthouses. Okay, so faster decision making, operational continuity, three times faster recovery from disruption, and so on. Okay, so these are not, again, like somebody said, 400% ROI. These numbers are not standard, these will vary, but this is just to give you an idea of the benefit. Okay, and well, I'll leave you with a few thoughts that question is not whether to adopt AI, it's whether you lead or you are catching up the next 5 to 10 years. So you should start small, but please do start and build your capability. And well, here we are. This is my last slide. We've got intelligent machines, connect them through your data. Your experts are, their skills are multiplied by AI. And then finally, the end goal, or what is possible in the art of possible, is a factory which thinks for itself. So I leave you with that thought. Thank you very much.